Hello everyone. Today I'd like to talk about a very interesting topic, and it's our microbiome, so our gut. Humans are essentially walking petri dishes. By the way, this is a chapter from Dave Asprey's book, Superhuman, on the gut. And the microbiome affects our health, right? Our composition of it changes with our age, and this change can harm vascular system by making it stiffer. For example, older mice have more inflammatory pathogenic gut bacteria than younger ones, and they produce actually more TMAO more than the good bacteria, again leading to stiffening of the vascular system and increasing the risk of heart disease. And antibiotics, which kill the bad bacteria, actually can reduce stiffness, and that actually shows us that yes, our gut is very important and does in fact influence our health. In this case, it affects the stiffness of our blood vessels. In 2016, weinzmen study from Israel actually showed that we have 39 trillion bacterial cells, and to date, we know that over 1,000 unique species of bacteria exist in human gut. So we have a huge diversity, and a company called insilico can even predict someone's age with it within 4 years. And essentially, we need a good bacteria to keep our soil fertile, just like a plant dies without a good soil. So as we age, our composition and the diversity of this flora actually shifts. And so we need a balance between good and bad microorganisms. And our immune system actually functions better with these parasitic bad bacteria as well, because we learn how to evolve with them. So it's not a matter of wiping them all out, but it's a matter of having the right balance of good and bad bacteria. And the 2005 study showed that certain parasites can actually reduce inflammation, and that's the basis of the helminth therapy that we will not talk about much here. But essentially, we need a balance between bad and good bacteria in our gut. And 50 million Americans actually suffer from autoimmunity, and 20% which is 20% of the population. And again, it's due to the bad variations or the wrong composition of bacteria within our gut. And antibiotics, unfortunately, is not the right approach. There is this bacteria that produces spermidine, which actually doubled the lifespan in mice. And Asprey actually took the LKM512, which causes bacteria to make more spermidine. And this is actually it's done to shift the composition of bacteria, which produces this compound and leads to a reduced autoimmunity. So if we have the right composition, we can actually impact our health very positively. We actually get our bacteria from our parents, and if it's due to vaginal birth, it's similar to the mom's gut, and if we come from C-section, it's similar to the mom's skin microflora. So when a newborn is born, what can happen is you can actually swap the infant's bacteria with that from the mom's gut, and you can actually, if you have to do that, to have a better composition of flora. And breast milk actually has 600 different species of bacteria, which is formula milk, which is much less diverse and has C. difficile, which is a potentially harmful bacterial species. So then as a baby grows, it eats more solid food, it metabolizes it. Bacteria helps metabolize solid foods now, and there's an immune shift up to 3 years of age, for example, when a baby starts to eat solid foods, when it goes from milk to solid foods. And so some bacterial species make a short chain fatty acid that leads to B and T cell proliferation, right? And so that's actually really, really good. And bad bacteria can make autoimmunity, asthma, allergies, so of course not so good. Of course you want the right composition of the immune system, but you don't want autoimmunity to happen. And of course you can get high amounts of, so infants who develop asthma have less of the good bacteria and more of the bad bacteria, like Candida, for example. And so probiotics can make the gut worse. They have histamines. And the certain bacteria also make them via fermentation proteins, which leads to process, which leads to allergies, but can also act as neurotransmitters. So excess histamines lead to migraines, sinus issues, and even inflammation. And so fermented foods contain plenty of histamine, as bacteria make them in the fermentation process. And so that's what fermented foods like sauerkraut and kombucha are not recommended, because the bacteria actually fermented make the histamines, which a lot of people are allergic to. And Candida also likes sugars and ketones, so you can't really starve this bad bacteria that I discussed. A person has a bad composition, which leads to autoimmunity, asthma, allergies. You can't really starve them, you have to actually wipe them out, because they can actually feed on ketones as well, even if you have low amounts of sugar. And so we need food for the good bacteria. And if you're histamine neutral, you can take S. thermophiles, you can take L. rhamnosus, and then these are two types that are good for histamine neutral individuals. If you want to reduce histamine sensitivity, you can minimize histamine producing bacteria, which are L. casei, L. reuteri, and L. delbrueckii. I probably saying it wrong, all of which are found in fermented foods. And so if you want to reduce your sensitivity or your tolerance to histamine, or if you want to increase your tolerance to histamine, I should say, you want to minimize the bacteria that make them while eating bacteria that degrade histamine via supplements, for example. And that's B. infantis, B. longum, and L. plantarum. Again, sorry if I mispronounce these words. And so you want to, again, minimize the histamine-producing bacteria and maximize the histamine-degrading bacteria. And so bacteria need, of course, the right fuel. So even if we take probiotics and we do it well, we take the right ones, well, bacteria have to eat food as well so it can do its job. And vegetables rich in soluble fiber, like sweet potato, Brussels sprouts, and asparagus, have a lot of prebiotics, which is the food that these bacteria need. Also found in coffee, chocolate, bless their hearts. And the best way to actually increase prebiotics is to eat a lot of vegetables, a lot of servings a day, as well as take extra prebiotics. And a 2019 review in Lancet showed that it actually reduces the 4 killers. In fact, 15 to 30% decrease in cardiac death, 16 to 24% decrease in stroke, and 19% reduction in type 2 diabetes. It also reduces Alzheimer's via gut and brain inflammation is reduced, and microglia inflammation is reduced as well. So researchers actually gave type 2 diabetes patients either 10 or 20 grams of prebiotic fiber once a month, and there was a reduction in insulin sensitivity, waist to hip measurements, LDL cholesterol, reduction in glycated albumin, and even the same result was shown in non-diabetic patients as well. And now you may think grains, legumes, and beans are great because they are good in terms of the prebiotics and all that. You would be right, but unfortunately have lectins, which cause inflammatory and autoimmune issues. And grains actually have agglutins, which cause problems like a leaky gut. And so what you can do is you can use something called acacia fiber to supplement for your prebiotic fiber to give these bacteria a lot of food, which is a better option than eating beans and stuff like that, and grains, etc. Now the government recommends 14 grams per 1,000 calories of these prebiotic foods for the bacteria. And a study in Netherlands showed that 9% lower risk of total death in 1,000 men tracked over 40 years when they ate 10 grams of prebiotic fiber instead of none. And then a study in Israel showed that there's a 43% reduction when they ate more than 25 grams of fiber versus those that ate less than 25. And there's every additional 10 grams had a reduced mortality by 12% in men and 15% in women. So therefore, the more actually shown that it's actually the better. In fact, eating more than 25 grams help to greatly decrease this type of death, to decrease the total death, and every 10 grams extra decreases it even more. So the more, the better. You can eat 35, 45, etc. Now, resistant starch is also another topic, just like prebiotic. Just like prebiotics, it produces butyrate, which reduces inflammation in the gut and in the brain, and also fuels cells in the intestines, feeds good bacteria, and also prevents the 4 killers. So similar to prebiotics. And actually reduces the size of cancer lesions, kills precancerous cells, reduces systemic inflammation. So really good stuff comes from these resistant fibers, which is not digested in the stomach but goes all the way to the colon, and even prevents leaky gut. And there's actually no rise in insulin and sugar as it's not digested. And so leaky gut is bad because it causes inflammation, autoimmunity, type 1 diabetes, and there's other gut problems like IBD, celiac disease, and allergies. But resistant starch prevents that, avoids that from happening. And so a 2012 study showed that 15 to 30 grams of resistant starch daily for 4 weeks increased insulin sensitivity compared to none. Good for weight management, etc., reducing inflammation. So very similar effects in terms of reducing diabetes, very similar effects to prebiotics. So prebiotics you can get from eating acacia fiber. Where can you get resistant starch from? Well, excellent sources are green bananas, so unripe green bananas, and then plantain or green banana flour, and raw potato starch. Now, there's also like this bacteria called bacteroidetes bacteria, which are found more in lean people than obese people, and they're found a lot in polyphenols, like colorful veggies, coffee, tea, chocolate, and fresh herbs and spices. So you can actually starve, and then also you can starve sugar to make this FIAAF compound and burn fat as a fuel. So again, by eating these polyphenols, you kind of are able to better manage your weight, because you're producing this type of bacteria that are found more in lean people than obese people, and you can do that by easily eating food like with colorful veggies. That's why you want a lot of vegetable servings. Again, vegetables have a lot of they're really good, as we already discussed earlier, right? That's what I'm saying. You have to eat a lot of vegetables. If you recall, I said that earlier. And then what else? And then it's good for weight management as well. So 2018 study showed that this bifidobacterium relies on fiber for good lining, right, of the intestinal tract. And low fiber actually cause more leakage to develop. So of course you want prebiotic fiber, you want all of these things. You want to eat polyphenols for weight management, and again reducing inflammation. And of course you want to get the right amount of resistant starch. Another thing that's really cool is that stress can change your microbiome as well and lead to IBD, IBS, and GERD. Thus you have power to change your brain and the gut, as they communicate via the gut-brain axis. And you can actually track your bacteria using various sources like Microbiome, and there's a bunch of other ones where you can track the bacteria, so that you know how to feed the bacteria and what foods to avoid. And you can actually add brain octane and grass-fed collagen as well, and even bone broth, which also contains collagen, to avoid leaky gut and more easily absorb nutrients. So there's many things that you can do, and brain octane oil is good because essentially you're gonna have less glucose, so you're feeding less, because again, high amounts of sugar is not good because that can cause candida and bad bacteria to happen. So bad bacteria to overpopulate. And so again, just to review, we want the balance of these good and bad bacteria. But the bad bacteria produces inflammatory molecules. So we want to have the balance. We want to have probably more of the good ones, and we can do that by easily eating by taking good source of probiotics, or the good bacteria that break down histamines, of course, because we don't want those. And essentially we want these good bacteria in our gut, because we need these bacteria are very important part of our health, right? We talked about heart stiffness, etc., the importance for longevity, etc. Now, but we also need the fuel for these bacteria, so we need the prebiotics, and we can easily get that by eating vegetables rich in soluble fiber, right? And then coffee, chocolate, etc., which also have which also have polyphenols, which are really good as well, found more in lean people than obese people. So all this is great for weight management and the reduction in autoimmunity by eating this good prebiotic fiber. And then we also talked about resistant starch, which is the prebiotic fiber. It reduces the butyrate amount and reduces the inflammation in the gut and in the brain. And so you add some acacia fiber, eat a lot of vegetables, and of course add resistant starch, right? Like white rice that's heated and cooled, or plantain flour, cassava flour, or even a good old green banana, unripe.